It's actually the reward of sincerity and commitment in practice to be given opportunities to give everything. So I want to tell a little bit about my study with my Dzogchen teacher, Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. Most of the time when I was studying with him, it was via webcast. And just started maybe in like 2002 or something, I'm not exactly sure. It was when hardly anybody was using webcast technology. It was just starting. And Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche taught in extremely remote places in the world and still does. If you want to get teachings from him, you could sit around for 10 years and wait for him to come somewhere in the United States. Or maybe sit around for another 10 years before he goes to Barcelona, where he sometimes teaches. But if you want to get regular teachings from him and you want to see him in person, you have to go to like Isla Margarita off the coast of Venezuela, or to the Crimea, to the Black Sea, or to where I went, to Tenerife, an island off Spain, the coast of Spain, or to the tip of Argentina, way down yonder, down there. You have to travel far to out-of-the-way remote places if you want to, mostly if you want to get teachings from him in person. And if you want to get teachings from him via webcast, well, in the early days, the webcast was down more than it was up. Seriously. You'd either go to a Dzogchen center and sit around with a bunch of people frantically fiddling with a bunch of technology nobody understood, trying to connect via Wi-Fi that sucked and was even suckier on the other end, you know, wherever they were in Tierra del Fuego or whatever. And, you know, the webcast was down more than it was up. And Rinpoche gave the instruction that the transmission is not in the webcast, it's between you and me. So when the webcast is down, while you're sitting there with nothing happening, you focus on me. Even when the webcast came back up, it was starting back where it left off, so it wasn't even live. You know, it was like catching up. There was like a half-hour lag, right? So who knows what Rinpoche was actually doing in that time. And even when it was continuous for, you know, 5 or 10 minutes, it was still this huge lag. Then, if you didn't want to go to a center or you didn't live near a center, because he was teaching in these other places with these huge time differences between there and here, you had to get up at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., go to your computer, try to wade your way through this very antiquated webcast system where half the time you couldn't even log on, let alone get the webcast, and then sit, you know, exhausted in front of your computer while the webcast continuously went up and down. And people are writing on chat, what's happening? Blah, 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 you know. If you want teachings, you have to make efforts. So we've had a rash, and it's always been true ever since we started the webcasts. And let me just say one thing about the webcasts. There are some teachers I know that use webcasts, and Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche is still using webcasts, and they still go down a lot. And they're only one way. You can't ask a question, you can't write anything in chat. And most of the people I know, all of the people I know of who are doing spiritual teachings, offering spiritual teachings via the internet, are doing one-way teachings. And in some cases, you can write a question in through a chat thing. But there's no talking or, you know, back and forth conversation. What we're doing is unusual at the moment. You know, we're doing something that a lot of people, or most people I know, are not putting in the effort to do. But since the beginning, there have been people who are not willing or don't understand, I think it's more don't understand, that you have to do some work. If you want to have these teachings happening and being delivered to many different parts of the country, not just to the West Coast, but to where other people are living, like in California or wherever, especially those people who are receiving the webcast, you have to educate yourselves. That's the minimum you can do, is you figure out how Google Plus Hangouts work. You figure out how the invitations work. You make some effort to participate in your end, your responsibility for this. I'm not saying this because I'm just a cranky teacher who's tired of getting all these questions about, you know, where's my link, and I'm not on Google Plus, and blah, I don't see you, and why does my invitation say such and such a time and not other time? You know, all these questions that are things that could be answered on your own by just doing some investigation. I'm doing it because this is part of the tradition that you make an effort to come to teachings. Unless it's absolutely necessary, you don't sit at home watching the webcast when you live a half a mile from the teacher. You know, I understand that people have kids and things happen, or you're sick, and you know it's lucky that you can get the teachings and you're sick. You know, all that I understand. But it's part of your sadhana to make an effort to get teachings. If I were you know, I've always been such a traditionalist. I don't know why. Maybe it's some past life thing. But if I were following my karmic pattern of traditionalism, because that's a karmic pattern, there would be no webcasts. I do not feel entirely comfortable doing this. For many reasons, but one of the reasons is that I feel in my traditionalist dogma that if you want teachings, you should come get them in person or make more of an effort. Yeah. But I recognize that that's dogma and that it's more compassionate to do this. And so I'm trying to release my own karma. And just be compassionate and do what needs to be done. But you have your part to play too in taking responsibility for this as part of your sadhana of making an effort to get teachings. That's always been part of the direct realization traditions. In fact, I think, other than the fact that Norbu Rinpoche likes tropical climates, I think that part of the reason he is in these remote places is so that it takes effort to go see him. Right? Nobody who really wants to learn from a teacher and get the most out of it and realizes the most as they possibly can in one lifetime, nobody who really wants that from a certain teacher just watches webcasts all the time. I mean, all the people out there that are watching Norbu Rinpoche's webcast but never go to see him, you know, they either don't consider him to be their primary teacher, which is fine, or they don't get it. I mean, I consider him to be a very, very important teacher for me, but I don't consider him to be my main guru. And that's why I only went to see him in person twice. But it was a huge trek to go see him, you know. I had to go out in the countryside in Peru the first time, like 100 kilometers outside of Lima. And the other time, I mean, you know, it might seem like crocodile tears, but having to go to this, tropical vacation island off the coast of Spain. But it was a pain in the ass getting there. It cost a lot of money, and I really didn't want to go. And anybody who was around at that time knows I didn't want to go. I'm just not into hanging around on tropical islands for the sake of hanging around on tropical islands. I'm just as happy to stay home.
That part of you not liking to go to the beach?
No. It's just like vacationing somewhere just for the sake of being somewhere exotic. It just doesn't interest me. But, I went because I get it. There's like that teaching that I went to in Tenerife was not offered over webcast. Why? Because it's one of the most precious teachings in the whole Dzogchen tradition, and Rinpoche didn't want to give it away over a webcast. I also, and this is again I don't need anybody's appreciation or not even thanks really. I'm doing what I want to do, which is offer these teachings this way, because otherwise the people not here wouldn't get any of these teachings. So I want to do this, and that's why I'm doing it. But I don't think that anybody except the people that are with me understand the absolutely enormous amount of work that has gone into this. It's really hard for non-technical people, and just if you haven't really thought about it or you're not around, it's hard to understand that, first of all, thousands of dollars have gone into this. I don't know exactly how much, but simply getting a calendar together that has 2 locations and 2 time zones in it, that in and of itself cost us a couple $1,000s of trial and error and finally getting it right. And then, all the equipment and the constant fiddling with the website, trying to keep things going, and the constant attention to having everyone be able to get online. You have no idea how many hundreds of hours and, ridiculous amount of money has gone into this. So I'm just saying, as they say, I want everyone to do their part. And if you find yourself, you live in Portland, Oregon, and you never come to the teachings in person, you just listen to them on the webcast, don't think of yourself as a serious student of mine. You're not. If you don't come hang out with the community and be with the community, and you're not, having that experience, at least, because being with the community is part of the sadhana too, right? You're just hanging out in your room because it feels more comfy for you and you don't want to have to deal with anybody else, then you're not a serious student of mine. Don't fool yourself. Talking to people who do that. If you want to be a serious student, if you want to realize you put effort into it, you educate yourself about how to make things work so you can get the teachings. You make an effort to be with the community, and you make an effort to come be with me when you can. More than an ordinary effort. More than an effort that meets your criteria of convenience. Like it's an effort, but it's a convenient effort. If you want to really realize you have to be inconvenienced, your whole karmic thing has to be inconvenienced. In fact, that's the job of the teacher, is to inconvenience you. It's hard work, too. It is. It's hard work inconveniencing everybody. You have no idea.